Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Take two. I'm Daniel Gowan, co-founder of D2 Counseling, and this is my business partner, Dr. Dina Hijazi, also co-founder. And we'd like to welcome you here tonight to the Dallas Free Lecture Series. And we have moved back this very evening to doing a hybrid presentation, both in person and on Zoom. So we welcome you both at home. We welcome all the folks that are here as well. The Dallas Free Lecture Series has been around Dallas for quite a while, and D2 Counseling is privileged to continue to host this with Unity Church. We went to Zoom with COVID, and we're pleased to be coming back to doing this hybrid. So next month, feel free to come in person or continue to watch it at Zoom as you choose to.
So we said all this, and now we're saying it again. And I appreciate those of you that have your cameras on, because it sure makes this easier for us to actually see some faces. So thank you. Daniel and I are co-founders of D2 Counseling, which is a counseling group that offers quality therapy. And we see a variety of clients with a variety of issues. We work with ages 3 to 93. And probably one of the things that we're most proud of is that we offer multiple groups. I think 10 or 11 groups a week we have that run. And we strongly urge you to consider that as an adjunct or additional form of therapy, because it's such an antidote to the isolation that we're experiencing in these past 2 years. You can go to our website, d2counseling.com, and you'll see that we offer 1-day workshops, 2-day, 3-day workshops. So there's a whole host of different offerings on that website that we'd love you to take a look at.
So if you'd like CEUs for tonight's presentation, if you're here in person, we sign in with the sign-in sheet, and we will provide you the CEUs before you leave tonight. And then the folks at home, we'll post in the chat, but what we need you to do is just send us an email at info@d2counseling.com, and we will get the evaluation and the CEU back to you. I'd like to mention that next month on February 15th, our speaker is Dr. Cedric Wood, and he will be presenting on the 4 quadrants of poor parenting. And I'm pretty excited about that. Anything we can do to improve the quality of parenting, that's, again, that's going to serve anybody 3 to 93 in a very positive way. With that, I'd like to introduce Jeremy Edge, Jeremy Edge, who has probably the most unique and satisfying web address that I'm going to let him introduce that to y'all. But I'm just fascinated by his creativity, and I've worked with Jeremy in many ways and find that he is really astute at what he's working on. And what I most appreciate about Jeremy is his passion for what he's doing. So with that, Jeremy, I'll let you continue to introduce yourself and let us know what your website is.
Sure. Thank you, Dina.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you so much for coming, online or in person. If you're able to, if you're comfortable with putting your camera on, it really helps with some interactions. So please feel free to just put your cameras on if you'd like, so I can see and interact with you.
Oh,
You can't see.
volume's going again. Oh.
Nothing's muted over here.
I can see and hear.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Nope.
Okay. Lib, you still got sound?
I've got sound. I don't have. I can't
Okay,
see
thank
y'all.
you, ma'am.
Oh wait, I've got a.
I have sound
camera
and video. Kind of hold it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Just in between stuff. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Sorry, it looks a little bit alien.
There we go. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can do this now. Okay. Is this better? Can we hear me okay? Yeah?
Yep.
Thumbs up. Okay. Thank you so much. So my practice name is escapingthee.com. And that's the name of the website. It's the name of the my practice that I've built, and it's all devoted to screen use and problematic screen use. So gaming, social media, pornography, online gambling, just challenges with online screen use, doing it effectively and in a healthy way. That's where my practice and myself come in. I've got a couple of therapists that are also working at my practice. So I primarily work myself with teenage boys around gaming. I've got some great therapists that are also working in the field of adults and also some young kids as well. So we'll talk more about that. But today, I'd love to just give you some insights on the gaming world. We've talked a lot about just video games. And so we're going to jump right into it. At the end, we'll have time for questions. So please feel free to write down some questions. We'll ask and interact more when that comes at the end. Okay. All right. So we're going to be talking about kind of our interactions with clients who play games. So understanding the work with clients and who plays video games. It's a gamer's world. Okay. So the outline, we're going to be talking about information about gamers, what that entails. We're going to be talking about gaming disorder in particular. It's now a clinical diagnosis. We're going to be talking about gaming as a profession. It's not just something that people can do recreationally. It's now something people can make money at. Also working with our clients, like what that looks like and how we can interact with our clients in a healthy way if someone plays video games. Also understanding our own perspectives has a big piece in it. A lot of times how we feel about something or how we feel specifically about video games can have a big impact on how we interact with and work with our clients. We're going to be talking about some practical tools, some really hands-on tools and treatments, tools that I've created with my team, and also some treatment modalities that really help with gaming in particular. The last thing is going to be resources, some really good resources. This website, or this presentation rather, has a lot of hyperlinks. And so after this, if you'd like, I can email this document to everybody. It has really good resources and tools already embedded into the presentation. All right, so the first thing we're talking about is what the gamer looks like. Okay, so we talk about the gamer. It's the average person who plays is about 33 years old. A lot of kids, but a lot of kids have been playing for a long time. And so the average gamer is pretty old. It was about a little bit more than half are male, a little bit less are female, about 45%, 54% are male. The female population is underrepresented. The average length of time people have been playing has been like 14 years. Now it's not like, start to stop, but again, that 33 years old is the average. People have been gaming for quite a long time. The demographic kind of ethnicity breakdown, it looks something like this. For Caucasian, about 67%, Hispanic is 15%, African American about 12%, Asian about 5%, and other populations around 3%. So again, just a little bit of understanding of what the gamer looks like here in the US. There are different types of gamers. The first type of gamer is the escaper. There's three different types. And this first one is the person plays to try to escape, to get into a world, to try to escape either from something or escape into something. They're usually impulsive and they have pretty low self-esteem. They can play games similar to World of Warcraft, maybe Skyrim, games that are very immersive, something that you kind of jump into a world that's has a lot to explore, a lot to soak in. Now, the achiever is a little bit different, where they play to achieve, they play to progress. They are also impulsive, but they usually have higher self-esteem. And these are games that do have some skill that are required to play well. If you think, like basketball or soccer or any sport, you usually have to play pretty well to enjoy, to play at a professional level. Well, a lot of these games also are now very competitive, and you have to play at a pretty high stakes to do that well. Anyways, higher self-esteem is usually involved with that. And these are games like League of Legends or Valorant or even Fortnite, or some examples of games like that. The last one is a hardcore gamer, which is a mixture of both. It's a mixture of the escaper and the achiever. They want to achieve something with their gameplay. They also want to escape into something, to escape into a world. So it's a little bit of both. They also are impulsive, but it's their gaming identity. They really love who they are. They say, look, this is who I am, and they're all about it. Now, this last type is the most at risk for problematic gaming. Doesn't mean that they do have a problem, but it means that this is the most potential for problematic gaming. So what it looks like for prevalence, about 90% of people who play it recreationally, and it's a good, healthy thing. It's a healthy outlet. There's no measurable consequences. Again, out of 2.5 billion people who play games, around this much, play it in a good way. Now, about 10% are at risk, meaning there are some identifiable behaviors that are some issues around games. There's about 5% that are problematic around gaming, And there's about 1% that are clinically diagnosed, people who be clinically diagnosed as gaming disorder. So again, these are kind of a little bit of some numbers about how prevalent really gaming is in the world. So as of January 1st of this year, 2022, the World Health Organization has identified gaming disorder as a legit diagnosis. It's going to be in the ICD-11 and is something that is very interesting for us to know about what gaming can look like, and it can be a problem. The first piece of it is if there's impaired control. So what that means, if you're trying to control how much you play games and you can't do that, that's a really clear sign that could be an issue. If you'd rather game than do other hobbies or activities or things, then that's another clear sign. If you continue to use in spite of seeing negative consequences, that's another really clear piece that this is an issue. In general, some specific impairment, you need to look at your entire life, kind of holistically. How are games interacting and how are you experiencing life through games in personal, family, social, educational, and all of it. It needs to be, you need to see this for a significant period of time. About at least half a year or so, if not more, for a year to be able to say this is legit diagnosis. The DSM-5 has a condition for further study called internet gaming disorder. It's not a full diagnosis yet. However, it's hopefully going to get in the next publication. And it's very similar to gambling disorder, which is a full diagnosis, but this is very similar to it. And it is in there. So there's 9 criteria. The first one is there has to be a preoccupation with games. There's a lot of focus and a lot of attention on games. There's withdrawal, meaning whenever you can't play, then there's a lot of maybe anger or frustration or sadness or anxiety when someone is not able to play their games. Tolerance is built up when someone plays for, let's say, half an hour, and then 2 hours, and then 3 hours, and 4 hours, and 5, and it just gets getting longer and longer time-wise. And they can't control their gaming. Maybe they try to stop, they try to cut back, but they're not able to. Another sign is they lose interest in previous hobbies or activities. They continue to game in spite of seeing that there are problems, similar to the World Health Organization diagnosis. And they're deceptive, or they lie to others about their gaming, their family, their friends, their therapists. So this can be also a clear sign when working with clients that they're really not truthful about what they're really doing with their gaming. This is good to get parental, if you're working with a child, working with their parents, working with loved ones, if it's an adult, to see really how much time they are gaming. If they use this to escape, that in of itself, again, is not a problem. It's not an issue. But if they only use this to escape, then that could be an issue to look at. They use this to escape also from their problems, from their anxieties, their worries. That could be a clear sign. The last one is if they put school or their career on jeopardy because of how much they're playing, how much they're gaming. That's another clear sign. Now, with this diagnosis, again, in the DSM-5, it's not fully diagnosable yet. However, you need to be having these signs for around a year. If you're having 5 or more of these in a year's time, it's very clear that this is causing significant issues. You could be diagnosed with a gaming disorder that we just mentioned in the ICD-11. So these are just some things clinically to look at and kind of think about as a clinician. So there are some, outside of what we just talked about, there's some obvious negative effects from gaming disorder and from problematic gaming. It could be a lot of anxiety and depression. If someone is really using these games to cope with maybe a lot of challenges internally, then there could be a lot of anxiety around going around others, depression, where they feel like they can't do anything or amounts up to anything. There can be a lot of broken relationships. Gambling can have a lot of broken relationships too, but gaming in particular can have a lot of those as well. Impulse control issues. So a lot of games are very interactive, and they're very quick to find pleasure, right? Whenever you go into a world and interact with some way, you're able to get immediate satisfaction or gratification very quickly, right? There's immediate response you get. And so when you do that enough times, there's a lack of impulse control that happens. And so that's a really big issue that can come up. You also can get negative distortions or negative cognitive distortions. And so I work with some clients who this is a really big issue for them. There's some cognitive distortions around, well, I can only do well in this game. I can only succeed in this game. I can't really succeed in my academics or my career. My relationships, my marriage is horrible. So they trick themselves into believing that their sole identity and happiness and safety is within these games. So that's something to work on and to understand clinically. There's some financial strain. There's a lot of games that has a lot of financial draw to them. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but that's another big piece to be aware of. All right. Finally, there's some problematic gambling involved. If you can see in this picture, the bottom picture is a classic, slot machine you would see at a casino or even online. It's random chance of what you get, right? Well, at the very top, that is a picture, or that's an image of a game called Counter-Strike Go or CSGO, where you gamble to get a skin. A skin is basically an outfit for something. In this example, it's an outfit for a gun. It makes the gun look different. As you can see, I'm pointing to this, but you can see the different colors just mean that the pistol or the rifle will look different. That's all it is. It doesn't make the gun look or do anything different, but it just makes it look different. The more rare the item is, the more it goes down. So again, if, like this right here, this yellow one, oh, good gracious, this yellow one is really, you can't see this cursor, but anyways, this yellow one is very rare. It's about a 0.44% chance for someone to get that item. Now, if someone gets that item, though, you can actually sell it online for real money. So people can get real money from some of these things. But it's a gambling component within a game that has nothing to do with gambling. Counter-Strike Go, the idea of it is to have 5 people versus 5 people in a competitive match, whoever wins first, right? Like capture the flag, basically, against live people. And you use a weapon to go around and shoot people before someone else shoots you, okay? So outside of the first-person shooter aspect, violence, let's get over that. But this piece of it is gambling. This piece is gambling, okay? And it has nothing to do with the actual game of what you're doing, right? This is an aspect of it. But and there's no limits to this. There's no regulations on this yet. There is some legislation out there now that's potentially going to be in Congress to put limits on loot boxes. Currently, there's not. Overwatch has loot boxes. CSGO has loot boxes. Now, some games like Fortnite, for example, don't have loot boxes. They have something where you know what you're buying, and you get everything within that purchase. There's no chance involved in it. It's a battle pass which you buy and you know what you're getting. But this is gambling, as you can see, and gambling is restricted. Yes, sir. It can be. So if you get a yellow, because it's rare and it looks cool. It's rare. It has high value. Like if someone has a really expensive suit, someone has really nice shoes, a certain designer, Jordan, something like that, right? It's a status symbol of what you're wearing. It shows either you're really lucky or it looks cool. And that's really it. These items right here, just if you get one of those, it means it's rare. That's all it is. But very good question. All right, so those are pretty interesting pieces within that. Now, if we look at gaming as a profession, we're going to go into this as a clinically diagnosable disorder. Now, this is recreational now as a profession, as a hobby. There are about, again, 2.5 billion gamers in the world. So there's a lot of people, a lot of kids saying, oh, I want to be the next streamer or the next gamer. And this is what they're talking about. Streamer is someone like Ninja, who has a deal with Adidas. His name is Richard Blevins. He's 30 years old. And in 2019, he made around $17 million streaming, playing Fortnite. Basically, he'd go online, he would record himself playing a game live. People would watch him, and he'd get paid around 17 million bucks to play a game. He's been asked to play new games for content. There's new games that are coming out, and they'll pay him $50,000 an hour to play this new game because, well, he's reaching hundreds of thousands of people, and so it's free advertising for them. It's not free, but it's advertising for them if they get him to play his game. And if he says, "Oh, this is great," then it's immediately going to get a lot of sales. Now, this interesting piece about Ninja, though, he's kind of cool. Gaming came second for him, and I'm going to share a video, and hopefully everyone online can hear it. If not, please give me a thumbs down or just indicate that we cannot hear. But this is a really interesting video, a clip of when he was interviewed for a news segment. So I'm gonna go here, cross our fingers, turn up the sound, and see what happens.
Tyler, you started competing in video games on Halo in 2009, so nearly 10 years ago, at which point I'm sure that was really a business model.
Question. I'm really happy to
Good for you for saying that. What do you do?
So they ask him about, what do you do with the money and all that. But basically, it's a really, really cool way to hear that someone who is making a career out of streaming, they are making good choices, right? They're able to say, look, gaming came second. It wasn't something I just could give up entirely. I couldn't just give up. We couldn't just give up everything entirely to be able to do this one thing. So that was really cool to hear. That's, hopefully you all appreciate some of that too. I share that with some teenagers, and hopefully they're able to sink in as well. Now, another streamer, someone who's made a profession of gaming is named Booga or Kyle. And this is a picture of him winning the Fortnite World Cup in 2019, I believe, 2019. He's 16 years old, and he walked away with $3 million from one tournament that happened one time throughout the year. Again, one kid, millions of gamers, but one kid walked away, with one tournament with a lot of money. He played around 6 to 8 hours per day. There's an interview of him talking, and there's more tension you could see with him and his parents about that number of how many hours he plays. But he's very good. He's obviously won at a world stage. This is an example. This is the Fortnite World Cup. This was in 2019. This is New York City, and it's obviously before COVID, but there's the stadium packed for this game, for this tournament. And that's Ninja on this big screen. He's kind of talking to the crowd. But as you can see, it's not exactly packed. There's some people at the top. There's not seats, but there's a lot of people here to watch this Fortnite World Cup. And this is one game out of a lot of games out there, friends. A lot of competitive games. And so there's a big audience. There's more and more of a huge audience for this. So it's very interesting. It's very fascinating. Something in particular that's interesting, I think, also is esports. Esports is the world of games that's professional gaming. So when you think of, the NFL is to football, the NBA is to basketball, so esports is to video games, is to competitive kind of video games. And so one game in particular is Dota 2, and it's a fast-paced 5v5 game, 5 versus 5 game. And this is the prize pool for last year, 2021, for a tournament, for a world tournament. This is the prize pool for everyone, right? The first place winners would walk away with maybe half of that, like $20 million. Each person within that team would walk away with maybe a couple million, if not more. Their coach would get some as well. So again, one tournament, one time a year has a whole bunch of money in it. But if someone is making a living of being an esports professional, when they're touring and doing as many, as many shows as they can, or basically as many tournaments as they can to make money. So this is another aspect to make a profession. It's interesting for us in particular because down the street in Arlington, there's an esports stadium. It's the biggest stadium, it's the biggest esports stadium right now in the US. It is specifically devoted to esports. This opened up a few years ago. Actually got my COVID shot there. And so it's a great spot. It's really cool, but it's just devoted to esports. And so it's really interesting, specifically for us in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Arlington area. League of Legends is an example of a game that is very popular. 2018, it had about 100 million viewers, 99.6 million viewers. In the same year, the Super Bowl had 103 million viewers, okay? So a little bit more, but we know how popular the Super Bowl is, right? We know how popular and how crazy it is in the US. Now, League of Legends has is a global game, right? It's very, very, international. However, it's very popular, right? If we compare those numbers, it's not much. This next image shows you how popular League of Legends is. This is another picture, another image of a pro game. And this is League of Legends. You can see on this national stage, there are commentators just like you see at a at a basketball or a football, event. These are the people kind of commenting and talking about the game. You can see at the very back of the stage, that's where the players are. You can see on the screens kind of being projected. And so it's a big stage. These teams, actually, the one on the right is from Korea. The other one's, I believe, from China. And so there's a lot of attention globally from this stage. So that's the professional piece of it. When we look at another kind of going back to putting our clinical hats on and seeing this from a assessment perspective, a basic question we should ask our clients is how much time are you spending playing video games? Just as broad as ever. How much time in general, right? And this can be deflected, right? But really a good question is to not understand how much time we're devoting to something that is keeping our attention. We're spending a couple hours a day, maybe, if we compare it to watching TV or reading a book, that can be okay, right? But we're spending as much time as we can on this. It's probably not a good thing. When we talk about working with parents, these are some specific tools I would encourage you with when working with parents who their kids play games. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends around, for the ages 2 to 5, around 1 hour of high quality programming per day, such as Daniel Tiger, Sesame Street, something that's educational. Again, it can be at most 1 hour or so. For ages 5 and up, 6 and up, it's use moderation. Really, if you read it, it doesn't say anything specific about do this, exact that, X, Y, and Z. Now, that 2 hour number has been thrown about, and that's something that I use, honestly, as a ballpark gauge to start off with. But each person is different, and each situation is different. But, again, use moderation, look at a holistic person, use that as a good start for your numbers. Really, we need to understand our child's perspective when we're working with parents. This clip says, oh, look at little Henry making worlds using his imagination and wooden building blocks. Next one says, Minecraft, witchcraft is what it is, repent, sinner. And Minecraft, for those of you who don't know, is basically a virtual way to build with wooden blocks. It's a virtual way to build, create, to explore. There's a lot of other pieces to it, but one way is very creative. It's very good to be able to engineer and to create any type of structure or building you want. And so it's at times really good to encourage that exploration and that creativity. It's very natural, though, in this example, for this picture, to demonize it. It's very natural for us to say, look, someone's on the computer. This is a bad thing. This is an issue. But we need to kind of go back and look at really what they're doing online and have a relationship with what they're doing to have a better understanding of how this could be helpful and educational. It is good to set limits, though. That being said, right, building with wooden blocks or Minecraft can be fine, but we need to set limits. Way to do that practically is through our screen time app, if you have an Apple device, or with the digital well-being, if it's a phone game. You can also pause the internet with Google Wi-Fi system. And this website, freedom.to, again, it's a hyperlink. It's a fantastic way to set limits and boundaries for kids, specifically on a computer. What it does is if you set it, so the story of the CEO, the one who made it, was a coder, and had a hard time concentrating when he was doing his work. He would get distracted with YouTube or Netflix or something. So he made this code that would not allow him to check anything else besides the tab that he was open, besides this work that he was doing. So if he opened up Facebook, it would have a beautiful little annoying sign or message saying, you are free from Facebook. You're free from this. And it won't let you go to the website. It'll block you from the website. It'll block you from certain domains that are not productive, that are not helping you improve your productivity. So basically it's that. If you have like a 2 hour time block, you just study and work hard, and put this on, and it will not allow you to do anything else besides what you're supposed to do, right? If you want to write a paper or do something, like you can't check Facebook or YouTube or Netflix or Hulu or whatever, or a game, let's say, or Discord, right? You can't do any of those things. So it's really cool. And if you try to go in during that time frame, it doesn't allow you. So that's another cool thing. All right. The next thing is when we are working with parents, encourage the family to do other stuff, to do other activities. A lot of times kids are like, I'm bored. I'm literally going to die if I do nothing, if I don't play games. So encourage them to move towards something that is exciting or fun. Maybe a board game, going on a walk, or do some projects as a family. The kids can do sports or dance or read or something else. The biggest piece is the parents have got to be the role model in this. And I'm not talking about if the parents don't play games, you're fine, but model healthy screen use, model healthy interaction with screens. one thing I go to a lot is I view screen use kind of like food, right? We can eat food, we could eat Whataburger every day. We would feel horrible and we would have negative consequences from that, but we could. It would be delicious, but it would have negative consequences. The same thing is if we have problematic screen use. If we don't have a healthy amount of productivity mixed with social, right, mixed with a little bit of entertainment and de-stress, right, then that is going to be problematic. And so we need to model just in general healthy screen use. All right, so now when we work with our clients, let's look specifically at how we can work with our clients who play games. These are some questions to ask them in session. Okay, so do you play games? And if yes, these are some ways to explore. What do you enjoy most about the games you play? There's a lot of different types of games, a lot of things you can do within each game. And so it's really good to explore, like, what is it exactly that's motivating your gameplay? And from that, you can really connect the dots of, okay, so you're really finding that this game that you're playing, you're really good at, right? You've been not playing as much basketball, you've been not having as much, time on the field for soccer, but you're playing more of this game and you feel like you're really good in Valorant, let's say, one of those new games. So what you enjoy about it sounds like is the competition. You love to be able to rank up or to get better and to have your status be improved. So the reason they play is to be able to find mastery, right? And if they don't feel like they're masterful in other areas, they'll try to find that online. What do you do in the games? All right, so really tell me about not just, okay, I play Minecraft, but what do you do in Minecraft? What is it that you're actually doing? And help gain understanding as the clinician to connect with them. That's a really good way to build rapport. And then what are your reasons to play? This kind of goes back to, what do you enjoy about it? And I've written an article talking about 15 different reasons that people play games. And you can go to the link to explore more of them, but there's a lot of different reasons we play. It can be from social, it can be from, again, mastery. So there's a lot of different ways to people like to play. If they feel like they're incompetent in one area or they're trying to escape from a situation or a relationship, then they try to have games as a way to cope with that. Who do you play with? This is very important as well, because a lot of times parents can be very worried, just people worried, I'm playing with strangers or I'm playing with my friends, whoever. It's okay to explore who they play with and to know that usually if you're playing with someone that's a stranger, that can be okay too. That if you're playing with a competitive match, just like if you play a pickup basketball game, you're not going to, invite them over for dinner maybe 2 hours later. You're going to hang out with them for that time, focus on the game, and then move on. If conversations stay to that, that's okay. Now, if conversations then move to, hey, where you live or what's your social security number, that's inappropriate and you need to be discussing that. But who you play with can be very important to ask. How many hours per week or day are you playing? That's important to know what your time is devoted to. And what are your pros and cons of gaming? This is a really good way I use kind of with motivational interviewing as the heart of it, is helping them understand the pros and cons of their specific gameplay. They obviously find value in gameplay, but help them understand, okay, so objectively here, no judgment, objectively, what are the pros? Objectively, no judgment, what are the negatives, what are the cons, right? From what you're seeing, not from what your parents are, what are you saying? It helps them have ownership of what they're doing, what their time, what their gameplay is doing. All right, so what are you gaining from it? Again, where's the value, but what are you gaining from this experience? Now, as we're going through this, it's really important as clinicians to understand our own perspectives and what we bring to the table when it comes to games, to video games. So again, explore, like, what are your own thoughts and feelings about video games? This is good to do probably outside of session, but even in session too, as you're hearing the client talk about their experience with games, explore what you're feeling, right? Somatically, what are you experiencing in your body? Is it ring any bells from growing up or a caregiver? Just understand more of kind of what your own thoughts or perspectives are about it. How it's good for us to answer this. How can games add value to our lives? There can be a lot of hysteria and a lot of worry with video games, especially when during COVID, when a lot of us are going online to spend more and more time with others and have these outlets. And so it's good to know about what value games can have in our lives. What are potential negatives for playing a lot of video games? What are potential negatives for gaming in general? And what's society's perspective? One thing I mentioned just briefly a second ago is, first-person shooter games. There's a lot of discussion or articles about how first-person shooter games can be connected with violence, in-person violence. I want to encourage everyone now today that the research says that there's no connection between first-person shooter games and legitimate violence. Now, aggression is different. Aggression and violence are different. Violence is the intent to harm someone and meaning it, right? Actually, hitting someone in the face is violence. Wanting to hit someone in the face is aggression. The desire, or like, gosh, I feel really angry, that's aggression. But the act of it, that's violence. And so there's a connection with increased aggression with first-person shooter games. There can be increased, maybe not as much empathy with if you're playing a game like Grand Theft Auto, which can be a lot of violence in the game. There's a lot of violence in the game. There's a lot of harm to people in the game. Now that can reduce your empathy maybe for others or seeing harm, but it does not mean that someone's going to go out and have a mass shooting, right? It does not mean that someone who's playing Halo, Call of Duty, those violent games in the game is going to have a direct connection to harming someone in the physical world. The research does not say that. I just want to encourage you. Now, there is violence again in games, right? I'm not saying that there's not violence in the games. There are violence in the games. And there can be times when our aggression can be up. People are done playing a game and they're really angry, they're frustrated. That's legitimate, but it does not mean that they're going to cause violence out in the real world. Okay, so it's also good for us to process our past relationships regarding video games. What was our parents' perspectives, with our friends' perspectives, teachers, adults around us? What were some relationships, how those affect our perspectives on games? A lot of times when I work with clients, I work with a lot of teenagers, and the parents come to me and say, look, little John has so many issues with games. They're addicted, help us out here. And we talk to the kiddo, it's like, well, what do you think, kiddo? Like, okay, I'm passing all my classes. I wasn't able to play soccer this year because of COVID, so I'm playing more games. I'm socializing when I can in person and at home and online. My relationship with my parents, I'm 17, I don't like them, right? Like, objectively, I think I'm okay, right? Okay, I play 4 hours a night, but I'm also getting all my homework done. I'm also hanging out and doing these other things. I also enjoy hunting. I also enjoy soccer when I can play it. I'm enjoying these other things. So my perspective is, okay, it's valid. It's valid. My perspective is it's a balance. It's a healthy balance, right? Just like a healthy diet. It's a healthy balance. So I encourage a lot of times to provide psychoeducation to parents of, look, I hear you that you feel like this is a concern, and I hear you don't like first-person shooter games. I hear that you are concerned that this behavior is problematic, and there's some aspects that it can be, but also I want to encourage you that this can be a healthy outlet, and here's why. All right, these are some ideas to how to go from disordered, this is a legitimate problem, this is an addiction, to this is recreational, this is healthy. One thing is to stop gaming, right? Just give yourself a break. Okay, let's just be honest, right? If any activity is causing a problem, just stop it for about 90 days, a couple months or so. Just give yourself a clean break from that. You can go back to it if you feel like you're able to control it in a healthy way, but stop it for now. One thing is good is to change the environment. I work with a lot of clients where the kid, let's say, is having a computer they play games on. They also have the same environment, the same computer for schoolwork. What I tell them is separate them out. Have a computer, have a laptop for school, have a separate computer if you can for games, for video games. If you have just one computer, have different users, right? So you have one account that's specifically for school, have another account specifically for games. On the game account, it has game stuff. On the school account, no game stuff, right? So you're able to differentiate the two. Another thing too is that's the digital environment. The physical environment is also important. So if they're studying in, again, find a place where their physical environment around them is conducive for studying, rather than it being, okay, I study here, I also game, I also relax here. We don't want to usually study in our bed, right? Because we use that to sleep. The same thing with video games. Have a space to play games, have a separate space to do work, just do schoolwork. I did that, the last one I did, changing the environment with one client in particular, it really helped him out in being able to see the change and to focus more on school. All right, so it's really good to redirect our gaming strengths. One thing that's really great about exploring these ideas with your client is if you say, okay, I am really competitive in this game, or I really love to build and to create, right? So that's a really great trick. You love to build, you have to be able to collect items, and to work hard to be able to build this big structure. It's a big goal that you have. Well, redirect that into your schoolwork. What can you do that's a big, lofty goal that is awesome and you have to work hard at, you have to grind at, do daily to make this happen, right? It could be, I want to build a robot in a robotics class, right? And so there's a daily thing you have to do to be able to make that happen. Or I want to build, let's say I want to build, something with wood, right? You can transfer a lot of things that you're doing within your virtual world into your physical world. It's good to set up protective factors or protective boundaries. This is a really good thing that I do with a lot of my clients. Again, about how to see that your protective factors or systems in your life can really help you stay away from games. Basically, a protective factor is something that's set up that is systemically going to keep you safe and away from problematic or unhealthy gaming. If you have a career, let's say if you're an adult, if you have a career that you really love or passionate about, then that's going to motivate you to not game uncontrollably because you're more motivated to do your career well. If you're in a relationship, right, you really want to have this relationship be a success. You want to spend time with this person, so you're not going to game all night. You're not going to game all day because you want to spend time with this person. Those are protective factors keeping you from gaming in a problematic or unhealthy way. All right. Improve relationships. Really look at some relationships and where are some issues and try to respond to and resolve those. Address underlying issues. If there is some stress or anxiety or depression going on, really understand and try to respond to those. This is a example. This is called the Wheel of Life. This is a really great way to help understand practical ways for teenagers and for young adults to see where they fall in their overall health and well-being. If you look at this wheel, you can see different pieces. There's diversified activities at the top, and you can scale that on 1 of 10, 10 being, you know what, I'm doing this really well, right? And then going all the way around. And you rate this with already kind of naturally where you are. So diversified activities, the reason this is up here is it's really good to have not just one activity you're doing maybe all the time. If you're doing just games all the time and nothing else, it can be very natural then or very easy to then say, look, I'm just going to do this, nothing else. This is all I'm doing. So it's good to have a couple different activities going on. This is a good way to help kind of look at your clients and say, look, okay, so I've got good activities. I've got a couple different things going on. Peer relationships are actually really strong, but my nutrition, it's horrible. I don't eat very much. And when I do eat, it's snacks so I can, maybe do other things more. Exercise is very minimum. I don't do much of exercise. Sleep and hygiene is also horrible because I stay up pretty late. So this is a really good way to get kind of an overall view of where their life is and how games interact with each of these pieces. This is a really great tool they use with a lot of my clients too. This entire picture is a hyperlink, friends. So when you get this PDF, just click on the picture. You can go to healthychildren.org, and you can't do it with this picture, but whenever you go to the website, you can actually create a schedule that works exactly for your child or for your client. You can see here it has different numbers, it has a plus and minus sign, so you can add to or take away. So if you're not going to school, but say you have a job and you do that for 8 hours a day, you can make that coincide with 8 hours a day. And then you can have different pieces, different fields. This is usually for a child. So let's take out adults. But this is for children. And this is an example of how much time is left over. That top number, the screen time, is a leftover number from a full day. And so this is a really great way for parents and kids to have a good understanding of, okay, so practically, I do have to, Jesuit and some of these, schools that are close by are really hard, right? And so it takes a lot of time to do homework in school. And this is maybe how much time that you could really have per night, if any, for gaming, for screen use. So again, it's saying screen time up top, but it could be gaming, it could be other stuff. So this is a really great tool and resource for teenagers. All right, practical treatments for us as clinicians. One thing to do is, again, obviously psychotherapy is fantastic. CBT, kind of behavioral therapy, is really good. 12-step recovery programs are fantastic. Being able to have this legitimate diagnosis, there's a lot of problems around this. Have a support system in place is really good. Support groups are also very good. Process groups around this is a fantastic way to respond. There are some inpatient facilities. There's one in Washington. It's called Restart. I actually had a client go there. To be honest, it wasn't a great fit for this client, but I have heard good success around other clients who have been there. It's a facility just for gaming addiction. It's just for screen use problems, screen use disorder. So it is a specific to that piece. There are some medications to help with this. Opioid receptor antagonists are there to help reduce that impulse control or help with that impulse control. Ultimately, there's more research needed. This is a new field. This is a lot of new concepts. There needs to be more research, but these are some of the research. This is some treatments that are out there for now. All right, some counseling modalities are really good. CBT is fantastic. It's really good to understand our cognitions of our clients, to see, look, what you're telling yourself, what are some internal thoughts, and be able to challenge those, that maladaptive thinking. Motivational enhanced therapy / CBT, basically it's like motivational interviewing. This is a really good way to help align with your client. Acceptance commitment therapy. There's a lot of shame and guilt involved around this topic of games. So if we can try to accept them and say, look, based on where you are, what you've been doing makes sense. Doesn't mean that you can justify continuing, but it makes sense based on where you are, kind of what's been going on in your past. Couples therapy is fantastic. It's an adult who in a committed relationship. And social skills groups can also be very good. A lot of times, even now after COVID, it's going to be even more so. So social skills for interacting in person is very hard for a lot of teens specifically. All right, so here's some resources for teens and parents in particular. I've created a course, 2 courses called the Powered Up course. The first one is a Powered Up Parents. It's designed for parents of kids who play games to better understand their kids' video game use, help improve relationships around games, and some practical steps to improve child's gaming behavior. It gives awareness and knowledge for the gaming world for parents, help them better understand what's going on. There's a course for kids, is just 10 to 18 years old. It's called the Powered Up Player. It's some 6 in-depth lessons of how we talk about experiencing healthy and balanced gaming. So as you kind of step by step, this is a holistic way to have healthy gaming, step-by-step outlines and guides. Here are some resources for problematic gamers. This is great to give your clients if they're adults. Computer Addicts Gaming Anonymous, CGAA, is really, really good. It's one of the leaders in this field. And they have daily phone meetings. It's basically a 12-step meeting, but it's on the phone. And so you have daily phone meetings that you can meet with someone else or a group of people who is struggling with a gaming disorder and give support in this field, or in this area. Online Gamers Anonymous is another 12-step self-help group. Offers a lot of good resources online. This is a really good resource I recommend a lot of clients as well. It's called Game Quitters. And this link, Hobby Tools, is really cool, where if you're looking like, look, I want to transition and do something else. I'm not sure what that is, though. This gives you a really good idea of, okay, so I'm competitive. I like to be social, and I like for them to be free or low cost. Well, there's some options. If you click on this hobby tool, this link, it goes over a bunch of different hobbies you can do that could line up with like what you like to do within your game. So it's a really good way to transition to do something else. There are some programs for gamers and for parents. Common Sense Media is a really good way for parents to get some news media information about different games, Roblox, things like that, what those are. There's some good apps and reviews for games as well. I also have a lot of good resources on my website, escapingthe.com. It's got resources, it's got articles, and a free self-help guide. So that's really about it, friends. These pictures are my 2 clinicians, Daniel Eccles and Lacey Jones. They're both fully licensed clinicians who are able to work with a lot of great people who are struggling with some gaming disorder stuff, or just in general, just some problematic use in general. Daniel Eccles actually gamed a lot, and he was diagnosed with gaming disorder. He stopped, is now on the path of not gaming at all, and he's in his full recovery. Rather than seeing it from the balanced piece of it, he's saying, look, this is something it needs to be, it's completely abstained from, and looking to start 12-step groups around this idea. So they both are doing fantastic work that I've been blessed to have them on. So we have some time, and I've intentionally given us more time to process a lot of this content. I'd be happy to go back to anything that stood out, anything that we want to discuss further. If you want to go more in depth too, I can talk about this stuff for a long time. So people online or in person, please, if there are any questions that I can help answer, feel free to jump out there. I'd love to help answer out any questions that we may have. Feel free, if you have any questions, we should be able to hear you. So, yeah, just unmute and feel free to say something and we'd love to hear it.
Jeremy, this is David Hanson. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, David. Yes.
So I'm 38. I'm actually recovering gaming addict. Big Overwatch guy. So top 10,000 in Call of Duty, the first game that came out online. So I relate to a lot we were talking about. My question is I mean, it's been a while since I've looked up the data, but would you say the increase in suicide rate is related to the increase in popularity of the gaming?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, David. Sorry, I'm trying to get this to show up. I haven't seen the research specifically if the increase in suicide rates has been because of video games. I think the increase in suicide rates, it makes sense with increased screen time in general. There is research showing that Facebook in particular or online platforms that focus on body image decreases depression for those who use it. And so like looking at the social dilemma, for example, there is some research out there saying that, look, the more time we spend online, the more problems it causes. So I think that can exacerbate already some anxiety and self-loathing and potential suicidal thinking. And so I think that is a piece of it. Now, video games in particular, I think it could. I think if someone is isolating, if someone is not wanting to be, out with others or feeling bad about themselves, they will go and find maybe solace in games. And so therefore suicidal feelings could increase or be exacerbated because they're not addressing it. They're escaping. And so it could be an easy way to jump into that. So I don't think it's maybe a direct causation or correlation. I think there's a loose connection, but I believe that could be a contributing factor for sure. So thank you for your question, for your perspective, David. I hope that answers that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I had a question. Great question. There's a question about which neurotransmitter is most connected to it. I believe dopamine. Dopamine is the biggest contributor for this type of addiction. There's a pleasure center, and every time, the way I describe it to clients in presentations sometimes is video games is a perfect way. They have a perfect way to get dopamine to you. Whenever you jump onto a game, within the first few seconds, there's a automatic, quick way to feel good. Right, very quick and regular. Right, intermittent reward, the interval reward, happens all the time. No matter the type of game you're playing, the reason that you can play a game for hours and hours and hours is because there's some type of positive reinforcement along the way, always along the way. You can play one game, one type of game, for endless hours because there's just constant moving up. Constant reinforcement, constant dopamine being released. It says, this is good, this feels good, I want more. So you're welcome. It's a great question. Great question.
I have a question. I heard in your language, this is a definition question. I can't tell if you're talking about screen, electronics, or game.
Sure. So a lot of it today was about video games. A lot of it, so I can expand on that. Like screens in general, I think is a more broad piece that is whenever we relate to the food piece. Like when we talk about food, talk about healthy balance, that's screen use. Healthy gaming can also kind of fall in a similar category, but I think screen use in general is more or less like a balance of there's type of screen use that is productive, right? We use for work, we use for school, it's productive. Healthy or unhealthy rather can be just only fun, or only video games per se, right? Video games are fun, right? But if it's only fun, that's the unhealthy piece of it. So I think most of this was strictly about video games, but I think some of it is a more broad screen use idea. And if there's anything specifically within that, I can definitely expand more on.
So I'm of the age where my kids first start getting it. And we as parents got crazy stuff. So I had some really nice, healthy fear and limited screen time. And thankfully, 3 out of 3 of my kids did not struggle with this. However, when they get together, they do crazy on the phone games like Angry Birds.
Yeah.
Which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Right.
And so are you putting that into this category? Is that gaming as
Yes.
well?
Yes. Any type of, that's a great question. So the definition of video games is any type of interaction with a screen that is fun, right? That has a goal or it's some type of goal in mind that is interactive. That is the point of it is for play or for fun. There's some type of goal or purpose.
Almost 90-year-old mother plays solitaire.
Yeah, that's a game. She's a gamer.
Okay, so she's a gaming addict then. Okay, so can they hear us? Oh, when we talk?
Can you hear them, everyone? Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so all of that now makes sense when you said the 2.5 billion.
Yes, yes.
Which is 33% of our population. That's like newborns to 100-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yep. 33.
Yes.
1 in 3. Who plays video games in here? All right, that's it.
Yeah. And so that's a great question, Dina, and great definition that games are across the spectrum, across the gamut. It can be something as stereotypical as the person on the computer or, the grandmother on their phone playing solitaire, right? That's a game. That's a video game. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Could you read it, please?
Leslie, you can unmute.
Thank you for catching that, Jennifer.
While she's unmuting, I just want to say that Facebook, which is also on Instagram and some of the other things, they're building gamification into getting the algorithm. So we're all gamers, whether we're playing a real game or not.
Gamification is a great word that you brought up, Jennifer. Gamification is basically making something have a game feel, have a game aspect. What that means is you interact within Facebook and you do something enough, you get a point or achievements, right? You get something where gamifying can be something simple as likes, right? You post something and the more likes you get, it feels really good, right? Oh, I got 100 likes, fantastic, right? 2,000 likes, right? So that's gamifying, getting reward from something that's not supposed to be a game. We haven't even had a time to discuss is the metaverse. Okay, if anyone has heard about kind of Mark Zuckerberg's future for Facebook and for Instagram, it's the metaverse. If anyone's read or watched the movie Ready Player One, friends, I'm not making this up. It's the Ready Player One oasis. What he has in mind. If you watch the keynote speech or some of the highlights, it's him putting on his VR headset. Not even that. It's just a virtual world that comes up, and it's him interacting in a virtual hangout time with people, with other avatars, very similar to the Oasis, which is a virtual world within this game, which in this is fictional book. And it's watch the keynote speech. If anyone's out there, watch the keynote speech. You haven't already. Part of it is very eerie. And it's anyways, within what you were saying to you about Facebook is games are going to be continuing to get more and more popular. And it's going to be not just with 2D, but now with 3D. It's going to be a whole other world out there. And we're not even talking about pornography, but that's going to be a whole other thing too. All right. Was there a question that we had maybe online?
Yeah, this is Leslie, and I had a question. Thanks so much for the talk. I'm wondering if gaming addiction also, if addicts hit bottom like some other addicts, and if you have any suggestions, if it's a spouse who has what is believed to be a gaming addiction rather than a kid.
Great question. This is for Leslie, I believe, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Leslie. So that's a great question. So I think it really, I'm trying not to be political, but I think political answer, but I think it can be really dependent. If the person has a lot of issues going on where games are the core reason, then I think it's okay. Hopefully they're open to change. Hopefully they're open to counseling. Hopefully they're open to work on themselves. And so if that's the case, then I think they need to abstain from it and to be able to have a healthy detox and a way to move away from it and to move towards something else. Especially if they're in a relationship with their adult relationship, they need to hopefully couples counseling if they're open to, or individual counseling would be fantastic. And so I think it's really possible, and I think it's good where people have had a lot of success. Daniel, for example, Daniel Eccles, his story, he did hit rock bottom. He did say he has an interview actually with a local news station where he hit rock bottom, and he used that as a catalyst to propel him towards health and towards sobriety. He carries a chip with him of his sobriety chip from that place moving forward. So that is one way to move forward. To be honest, personally, I've struggled with gaming as a problem and could be diagnosed in the past. And I didn't hit rock bottom. I saw that it was not adding a lot of value to my life. I saw it was distracting me from things that were more important, from my family, from my career. And so I'm a Christian, and I really value the value of prayer. So I use that as a catalyst to help me stop and pause gaming and to focus all my attention onto my career. I created escapingthe.com. I created the website. I built all of that from scratch. And so I used my gifts and what I was enjoying about games, and I moved that towards something productive and healthy. And so now, though, I've had a lot of space from games. And so now I've integrated back in my life and it's healthy. I track it. I put timers. Okay, so I've gamed for an hour today or 2 hours or played this much. This is how I felt while and after I played. And so I use that as some information to know, okay, so this is adding value to my life versus it's not. I want to have a connection with my clients, and I want to know and to still, be identified as a gamer, but I do it and I have a relationship with it. So that's my piece of it. Is different than others. Some people don't need to touch games and they don't want to, so that's okay. If you're able to interact with it in a healthy modality, if you have strong boundaries and you have good protective factors in your life, then that's good to do that. So I hope that answers that question. All right. Any other thoughts or questions or comments?
Somebody else has one, I'll fill in the blank.
Sure. Yes, sir.
A lot of these school shootings, I don't know if we've ever been able to actually get a video of the person shooting. But here was this perfectly clear picture. I'm over here on Walnut Street in Garland just a few weeks ago of a guy with his gun pumping bullets into 4 teenagers, pointing the trigger. And it occurred to me, how many times has he pulled the trigger on a video game doing the exact same thing, but just playing the game that he transferred into real life? Did that occur to you?
Yes, sir. So the piece of it is what the research says is there is the reduced empathy for that scene, right? If you're playing a game that's violent and that has a lot of gun violence, then it can reduce your empathy and it can build up a tolerance for that activity. And potentially, yes, we would need to know kind of what their activity was and what their focus was. And if their activity was a lot of online games. So it could be that. It could be that there's a connection with their games, but it's really speculation unless we talk with them about what they're focused their activities and attention on. So that's a fair.
That's a good point. Get that the idea of not fully realizing that this is not just a character on screen; these are real people. So
right,
empathy is damn
exactly.
So they can stop themselves.
Right. And before moving to the next question, yes,
Well, I was going to say, it's not only do you have the gaming turn, but you also have violence on TV and movies. Literally, you have somebody get shot and killed in front of you during this episode, and then 2 days later, they're popping up in another show.
Another piece too is, to be honest, like as we're talking about school shootings, the more that those happen, unfortunately, and suicides, the more normal it becomes, right? The more that some of these mass, horrific, horrible things are going on, the more that other kids are saying, well, okay, if this so-and-so committed suicide, it was a way that they responded to life stressors. It's an option, right? 30, 40, 50 years ago, that was never a freaking option. That was never an option. Now it is. Now it's more mainstream. More now. I mean, and yes, it's been there years ago. 50 years ago, people still could have been thinking about self-harm, but there's more of a focus now on it. And to be honest, a lot of the clients I work with too, a lot of the teenagers like, I just want to commit suicide. The more we talk about it, it's like, well, so I'm just honestly really sad, and I don't know how else to describe it. Right? They use this verbiage as a catch-all, right? Well, in the case that's different than mass shootings and desires to hurt others. But the more that people see it, the more they feel like it could be normalized, unfortunately. And there could be a link between them playing a game. Another piece of it, another layer is how isolated they are, how they are having problems and challenges themselves. They could be using games to escape from it or to act out their already feelings about others, right? This could maybe increase the resilience or the resistance to sensitivity, but it could be things that they already are feeling. If that makes sense. So that's something to think about. Obviously, if there are any questions, feel free to jump in. But as we were going over what stood out, I mean, when I give this presentation, usually if we're able to have some more interaction, there's a lot of awes about the profession, about the professional piece. What were some thoughts and feelings about seeing this as a profession? What did you think about seeing the stadium filled with people enjoying a video game?
Sort of like what I see when I see people watching a chess game. I can't imagine anything more boring.
Okay.
That's my view.
Great,
right?
great description.
But people that are into it and in awe of the speed and acuity, I'm sure they can share that with each other and the energy in the ring. I mean, I can imagine it would be really incredible if you're into that.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah, it's comparing a chess. Yeah, it's a great point. Golf can be a similar kind of thing. Dude, it's intense.
Awesome.
It's awesome. It's a great way to put it. It's awesome.
Say more about
What is it?
It's 5 guys with these controls, and they're racing drones through this obstacle course. And these drones go super, super fast, and they have cameras on the drone. I mean, it is exciting.
Do you feel like you're flying?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
You have like VR, isn't it like a VR headset, right?
Yeah.
Like- yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's,
What's like, all the Red Bull stuff? where they
Yeah.
have-
That's a great point. Yeah. And what's interesting that I really am excited to see is research in the future of what these fast-paced and like quick reflexes games and activities are doing neurologically to us. Because if you're doing this for like 16 plus years, right, like that's going to change the brain of how your brain's wired. If you're doing that quick reaction speed all the time, what's that going to do neurologically down the years? So I think it's going to be fascinating to see what that does for us. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So it's very fascinating. It's a really great point. Drone racing is very fast paced. It's very cool. I saw it recently. It's awesome.
some people get so good at it, they make millions of dollars. That's not a waste of time at all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you never know.
Honey, who's at the door?
Yeah.
Who's at our front door?
That's a great question. It's a great question. Yeah. So as a great perspective, I think, and that can be a fine line. It really can be like, look, this doesn't make sense. I don't get it. And it makes perfect sense to look at it from, there's no benefit, there's no productivity in what you're doing. It's just a waste of time. But then whenever it's able to be transitioned into a monetary gain, it's very interesting how that can shift. And so I'm working with clients who, there's a new game that's out called Valorant. And so there's new tournaments and there's new opportunities within this game. And so I'm working with some clients who are legitimately objectively pretty good, where they have a ranking system and they're pretty high. And some kids are making money. Some 16-year-olds are making like thousands of dollars from winning tournaments in this. Now, you know, it's just interesting and fascinating to know that this could be a side hustle, right? This could be something, instead of, you know, maybe working at Wendy's for a summer, they work and, you know, and make money with tournaments. So it is interesting to help parents understand the perspective of this isn't just for fun. This isn't something you just hang out with your friends doing, but it could be a financial gain as well.
I'm reminded of something I've read in the book, but about that part of what we need as human beings is to feel competence.
Yes.
Competence can show up in a lot of different ways, but we need to know that we're competent. I am competent at achieving something in life. And if games is a way of getting that, then that would be a valid reason for pursuing it. Just like I'm competent at cooking or competent at, I don't know, at math.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I think that what you mentioned before, though, is the problem is where that's the only place in the world where I'm competent, and I'm competent nowhere else.
Exactly. And that's a scary thing about for teenagers. If they already feel like school is boring or they don't get it, right? They're falling behind in math or something, or they're being bullied with friends. They can find competency. Now, that's a great word for it. I use mastery, but that's a great word for it. Thank you. It is, they find that online. You jump into any game, it's the lowest barrier of entry, right? A lot of these games are free to play, and it starts off slow. Everyone sucks at the start, but then they get better and better, and there's always something to get better at. And so, you know, math, you jump into a math class, and there may be a high barrier to entry. You have to know the foundations before you jump into calculus, right? And if you don't, then you're left feeling horrible. You're left feeling, you know, well, I don't know anything. I'm not going to do anything in life. I can't build on that. But you jump into any game, there's competency at the start. And so that is just something that a lot of people, everyone needs. You're right, exactly. Everyone needs that. And they don't find that it's natural to go there online to find that. Yeah, for sure. And that's why it's great. I love working with adults because it really I can help them. There's a streamer. He's a psychiatrist, I believe, a psychologist, and he graduated from Harvard. And he has a stream called healthygamer.gg. He talks all about healthy gaming. He talks about healthy interactions with video games. And he is fantastic in a lot of his interactions about helping people understand that, you know, you have to find passion. If you know, there isn't something in your life that's giving you meaning or purpose, right? Purpose, he talks a lot about purpose. That's something that you really need to find. And games give you purpose, right? That high rank, people want to get that high rank. People want to get that high medal or get that rare item, right? People want to gamble to get a really cool skin. That's a purpose. May not be the best, but it gives them purpose. So I really help challenge and transition. Look, where can you find purpose in life? Where can you find purpose with your school, your relationships, career, whatever it may be? Yeah. Any other questions? Any other thoughts or comments? Think of?
Question like that. Struggle with clients where it's a teenager who has a gaming issue and a parent who really isn't. It's just like, just fix him and doesn't really get involved.
Oh, man.
I imagine the success rate is low, or like, what's the challenge there?
It's a great question. The success rate is the parent, is the adult. I worked with this kiddo a couple times. They went to counseling, they stopped, and they came back. Where the parent literally said to me coming back, like, "You want to try again?" And so after working through that, is like, look, you know, his perspective is very stuck and he's successful as an adult, right? This adult as parent is successful in their own right as an adult. However, understanding their child's perspectives or needs or ideas and understanding the balance is none. And so what I do in that is I see, okay, so I'm working with your son. That's my client. I'm going to help empower that person. If they don't want to stop and they're not going to stop gaming, okay, but then we're not going to have that as a goal. But I will help you balance it, have a healthy experience within where games is adding value to you, right? You don't, you can do whatever you want with games, but if you're failing, if you have no friends, if your relationship with your dad is horrible, effectively get better, right? And so I really try to help to work with what I've got. At the end of the day, parents have got to change their perspective. They've really got to come to Jesus, and yes, kid has to make some choices, different choices too, but it's got to be, in my perspective, the adult has got to be the bigger one to change. So that's a great question. Hopefully answer it. Go ahead. Okay. Yes, thank you. He doesn't have any other competency. Correct. Great question. That goes back to having transferable skills, right? So I would help them understand what is their game of choice, why do they play it, what do they like about it, what are they doing in the game, and then transfer that. The easiest way is to transfer that into the physical world as much as possible. If it's a hobby, they like risky, fast-paced activities. Take them rock climbing, take them hiking, take them backpacking, whatever. But do something that's risky, like biking, whatever. Like take them to do something that's risky and that's challenging. That's a similar aspect of maybe what they're doing online. Give them something that they can chew on, and that they can think about, and that they can master, right? If they do have competency in their game of choice. So what is that? What were they competent in? And let's find ways for you to be competent in the physical world, either with a hobby, but even better with an academic field, right? If you hate school, but you love to draw or you love to create, then create something, build something, even if it's online with code. And if kids like to code at all, explore and dive into that. That can be where people can have a lot of competency. It's online as well. It can be fast paced, so much progression, and so much good can come from that. So I would encourage to help them explore other things. And part of it too, to be honest, when they are in detox, everything is going to suck for a little bit. It truly is. Even if they are doing something they really love. They love rock climbing. That's great. But the fact of going from gaming maybe a lot to doing something else, it's going to be a detox and a drop in dopamine, right? They're only able to experience so much level of joy and pleasure from playing a certain game. When you take that away, nothing else is really going to compare yet. That's why you need time. So when that time happens, then you're able to find a lot of pleasure in rock climbing, in your career, in school. But it takes time for that, for your neurotransmitters to reset, so other things are as enjoyable as the first, if that makes sense. Yes. I would recommend a couple months or 90 days, but a couple months, 60 days at minimum. Yes, ma'am. Okay, any other questions? Anything else? Love to chat more. Please explore my website. If you have any questions, please email me, jeremy@scapeland.com. Reach out, call. I'm available. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy.
I'm trying to get, I'm not trying to run over you. Again, thank you, Jeremy, for the presentation. This is, we're fortunate to have you here as a speaker. I learned personally a lot about this, and we thank you for that. I will remind you that next month we have Dr. Cedric Wood, February 15th, the 4 quadrants of poor parenting. We welcome you to be in person or online for that one, and we look forward to that presentation. And then again, we'd like to thank Unity for co-hosting with us on this.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Joining us live, and we'll see you next month. Thank you, Jeremy. Great timing for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It's fantastic.
Everybody drive safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.